So it's no secret that I, as well as many people on this channel, are really excited for Diablo 4. But myself, as well as all those other people, have one major common concern, and that is how the seasons will roll out. Because it's no surprise that basically all the Diablo games have survived this long due to the refreshing of game mechanics, gameplay, certain items, abilities, etc. from the season mechanics. And Diablo 4 is going to be no different. Diablo 4 will have seasons very close to launch date, and we'll get a little bit more information in this video. But I want to address a few of the concerns and potentially add some of my own input on some ways to handle this, because there are a lot of MMO-centric mechanics to Diablo 4, and MMOs aren't designed to reset. So first I want to start off with this blog post from Blizzard back in August 2022, and then show you all some of the new information that we received recently on how this either explains more or changes some potential things involved with seasons. First things first, seasons look to be soon available after launch, not on launch, but soon after. And one thing that they promised way back when is that they're looking to have a lot of new and exciting things in the game, such as quests, gameplay, etc. But one thing that they mentioned way back in August is that they are looking at the relative balance between classes, builds, and powers. Diablo is a game about creating exciting, overpowered builds, while we don't want to balance the fun of the experience. We don't want to create situations in which imprecise tuning squash creativity. And I think this is actually a really cool thing, because honestly, if it's going to be like Diablo 3 seasons, I think most of the time creativity is squashed to some degree, just because of how powerful a lot of these set items reworks are. And as far as they don't, pigeonhole a lot of people into specific set items, then I think we'd have a lot more options in Diablo 4 compared to Diablo 3. Now, granted, I can't really verify on what Diablo 2 is up to, so I'm going to compare mostly to Diablo 3, and I think that's honestly, the Diablo player base is split half and half between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. But I think in general, making sure that we have a lot of options in the game is an exciting idea. On top of that, since the game is the live sort of open world game that it is, this is going to be really exciting for those people that are interested in joining in with other players in the open world and looking for new live events in each season. I personally find that the open world is one of my favorite parts in any game, especially the MMOs, and Diablo 4 is no different. So I'm very excited to see these new live events coming with each season. And more importantly, for a lot of people that are interested in those sort of more casual aspects, the season journey will return in each of these seasons, which we will have one about every 3 months. And then these season journeys is going to be free. You're going to get unique cosmetics, progression towards the battle pass, which again will give you more cosmetics, and the battle pass progression advances alongside sort of the season journey, enabling you guys to earn more rewards. So for those of you that are casual players, oftentimes a common goal in Diablo 3 is, hey, I'm going to play this season just to get the unique season journey complete, and you're going to have that option once again. Now, recently, about a week ago in a Diablo 4 group interview, they revealed a lot of information about Diablo 3, what's going to happen with that, and some seasons. And I want to talk about a little bit of this and some of this stuff you might have already heard, but I want to talk more about my opinion and some of the implications of such things. This oftentimes addresses a lot of the critiques or potential concerns that people have. For example, this first question, will the renown system and altars of Lilith reset with every season? Joe Shelley said that it's going to use a similar philosophy as Diablo 3, and some systems will be tied to your account. In some cases, they will carry over between seasons. I think this answer obviously is a little bit sort of ambiguous. I am getting, by the way, some of the, I guess you could say, descriptions from Wowhead here. I'll leave a link to the article down below, but this is a pretty good summary, so I decided to use it. And again, as I said, this is pretty ambiguous. I think that when they're suggesting some systems will be tied to our account, some systems they might carry over, I think a system like the Renown system is bound to be reset. I don't think that they're going to have the Renown system be something that's going to just be one and done, because the Renown system locks things like skill points, things like Paragon points, behind the renown system. So if you start the season and you finished it, right, well, then you're going to instantly get access to Paragon points, instantly get access to a ton of extra skill points. And I think that ends up really, really messing with each season in the future. However, Altars of Lilith also give you potentially skill points and potentially renown in your renown system, but perhaps they could change something. I think that they asked the renown system and Altars of Lilith separately, because I think one of the big things for a lot of people is that the renown system is really annoying to repeat, but even more so, finding the Altars of Lilith around the map is even way more annoying. So I could see them continuously allowing you to save those stats, but potentially reset the renown system. Now, arguably, the season system is most concerning due to that reset, because a lot of people don't like that reset. And because you have a lot of repetitive mechanics in Diablo 4 in terms of map completion, then you may end up not liking that. And unfortunately, I think that's just a reality of the seasons. Now, one other thing that they mentioned, or a few other things rather, first thing, leaderboards. What will leaderboards look like in Diablo 4? They're actually not going to be included on launch. So my video, I talked about pay to win. This is something that I actually did not know. Someone of you dropped it in a comment, and I kept watching some interviews, and this is what came up, is that they're not going to have it on launch. So the fact that you have a head start doesn't even affect the leaderboards, but they want to get it right, and they really, really want to make sure they look at the top of the leaderboards and potentially sway people into playing some sort of class or build, etc. So I think that that's really, really cool. And I think that oftentimes leaderboards is a good way to say, hey, well, this person's using this build, I kind of want to try that. It helps a lot of casual players out who might want to look towards someone else in the game. Also, they did just confirm that the season cadence will try to have more predictable seasons for Diablo 4 and make it so that the Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 seasons are kind of offset from the Diablo 4 seasons. So if you wanted to participate in all of them, then you can. More so than that, one really, really important one is damage multipliers on gear. I know this is a big concern for people who are not a huge fan of Diablo 3's arcade style. Are we going to see big multipliers on uniques in Diablo 4 similar to Diablo 3? No. They explain they're going to reduce the overall scaling multipliers and damage numbers in combat, and their focus is on creating new builds or have them change builds. And I think this is absolutely something that I basically said in my previous video talking about the world tiers and how this is going to be way different from Diablo 3. After looking at the world tiers and how they are scaling XP and damage and all that stuff, it seems that they're really tuning back the numbers, and again, this is just a hard confirmation from the developers saying that they really want to tune back those numbers and have you not be doing millions, trillions, billions of damage in the game, which I think is honestly a good thing, because it can kind of feel a little silly. I know that in Diablo 3, when you get to that point where you're beating 120 GR 120s in like a minute, half, 2 minutes, it kind of feels a little silly. You're just running through and you're one-shotting everything super fast, tons of numbers. And although that could be fun for a little while, I do think it takes away from the game after a little bit of playtime. So I think it's really exciting. Couple other things from the developers here. Rod mentions in this question, how hard was it for you to meet the expectations of the Diablo player base while also doing what you wanted to do? They mentioned talking about developing Diablo 4, and they basically said, we want Diablo 4 to be your favorite Diablo, and if you've never played before, we want it to be your first. It has the dark tone of the original Diablo, which, by the way, if you guys have not seen the story of that game, it is pretty dark, it is pretty gruesome, so I do agree with that. Plus the persistent progression of Diablo 2, plus the visceral combat of Diablo 3, plus the new innovations. And I think this is actually a complete good representation. Obviously they're developers, so you'd expect them to know about the game, but you want it to, when you enter into Diablo, you want it to feel like a Diablo game, and I think they nailed the atmosphere. You want it to have absolutely a good progression path, and I do think that they nailed that with some minor criticisms, which I may go over in another video, as well as the fluid combat system that I think Diablo 3 had more so than any other game. But also, you want it to expand upon that, and I think the open world is a massive difference, as well as the endgame sigil system, which no other Diablo game really has sort of that endgame, except for maybe Diablo Immortal, which has a similar sigil system in the Elder Rifts. But I do think that Diablo Immortal is a perfect example of that doesn't really feel like a Diablo game. I know, because I've played quite a bit of it. I've played some Diablo 2, and I've played a lot of Diablo 3 recently. Diablo Immortal is kind of the outlier where it doesn't really feel like a Diablo game, and I think that they nailed it with Diablo 4, going back to the original roots of Diablo 1. A couple other things I want to mention here, and I'll post them all. Again, I've been posting a few of them, but I'll post all the different answers here. They mentioned focus on the launch until launch of Diablo 4. Server infrastructures being ready for launch is the most important. Obviously, you don't want to have a really, really rough launch, which they will, but that's just the nature of huge games at this moment. Hopefully they're going to do a lot better than potentially some of the other releases out there. UI improvements, they wanted to adjust that. They're not going to dramatically change, but they want to fix bugs, faster transitions, and other problems. They're going to have future endgame content and the inventory gem tab. This is confirmed. I know in this interview it says that it's something that they're looking at, but they have confirmed that they're really hoping to add it, or they're going to be adding it for the launch of the game. And will the Diablo 4's combat pace increase? And it's intentionally paced in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. As you add more things into the game, things tend to speed up. So that's kind of a nature of, you know, adding content into the game. So overall, in terms of seasons, what can we expect? Well, I think there's a lot of things that are really exciting, but new seasons will be adding new gameplay, new quests, new things like that into the game. And I think overall, some of the things that they've answered, specifically with the reset, this can be very, very good, very, very poor, depending on who you're asking. I know for me, I personally really enjoy the chance to build out my character and really develop it. So I'm not a huge fan of seasons overall. I'm more of an MMO style player, but that doesn't mean seasons can be bad. And with some of the things that they mentioned with the tuning back on damage multipliers, the ability to potentially keep some of your progression in between seasons and potentially offer some other way to kind of have that continuous development in the game between, I guess, between your characters. I think that's a good signs, and I'm pretty excited about it. On top of that, they're really focusing on the ability to change up your builds. And as I mentioned with the Nightmare Sigil system, I think this is a very, very easy thing to do. Each new season could add a ton of different sigils where one build could be absolutely trash one season, and the other next season it could be absolutely amazing. So I think it could do a lot of good in terms of mixing up things. Whereas in Diablo 3, for example, every season you have to do the same thing. Speed farm GRs, you have to do your bounties, you have to, solo push, you have to farm whatever, farm Paragon level, etc., right? So you have the same strategies over and over and over again. So at the end of the day, yes, you could buff and nerf some sets, and yes, some sets do some good things, but the same goal is the same goal, right? And I think Diablo 4 can change that in the Nightmare Sigil system and some of the potential open world events and map completion and potentially even world bosses in the future. Pretty excited about this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I know that this is really going to determine what the future of Diablo 4 is like, because that is what seasons are. That is what tends to be the longevity of ARPGs in general. Path of Exile, Diablo 3, Diablo 2. Without seasons, I feel like a lot of people would not have ever even come back to the game or not even participate in it. So I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. Are seasons a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Do you like what they have to say here? Or potentially what we've talked about in previous videos? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.